there to talk strategy. Strategy for their business that was not failing, but had the prospect of failing as they weren't moving fast enough to meet the needs of their customers. A classic situation. So we spent time with the executive team. The call started favourably. People were glad to see us. They talked to us about their hopes for the exercise, and then I asked politely for them to introduce themselves. They went round the call, and the remarkable thing was this. Rather than talking about what they did, maybe their title, although we candidly knew that already, each of them, to a person, talked about their previous roles and their accomplishments, which were impressive. But I was blown away. That's never happened to me before. And it made me wonder in that moment what was going on. So me being me, I politely but firmly called it out and said, hey, you know what? What's going on? Why are you talking about the past rather than what you're doing or planning to do? Now, this wasn't an in-depth coaching session, although indeed every strategy session could have an element of coaching in it. But I said, look, we're talking about the future here. What choices do you have to create a stronger, more resilient organisation? What advantage do you have that you can strengthen? And where do you play? And how do you make sure the organisation supports and enables that choice? And one person, brave CFO, said, we don't talk about choices in this session. We tend to talk about the operating business, how we're doing, how we can improve it, how we can refine it. And he took a brave step. He said, I think we talk about the past because we're not quite sure about what we're doing right now. Of course we're running a business, but if we're candid, if we had to describe our plan for the next year and 3 years, clearly and succinctly, perhaps to a new graduate or new apprentice in the organisation, we'd probably talk about numbers. We'd probably talk about outputs. We wouldn't have a clarity of a strategy. So I talked to them and said, let's talk about your products, how resilient they are. And they talked in depth about how technically sophisticated they are, how much engineering had gone into them. And it was impressive. And then I said, and who's paying for them? Who values that expertise? And then the conversation turned to, well, a pretty niche group. Okay, that's fine. If it's high value, so how's the pricing? Well, pricing was under pressure because one of the big technology companies was actually producing a lot of this for free, or at least at much lower cost. So I came back to it and I said, what are your choices? What can you do? And that started an exercise around what are the strengths of the organisations. And the strengths were in the brand, the customer base they had. But they also realised that they were spending far too long talking about the past, thinking about the present, and not enough about the future.